Hi there. Welcome back to Maryland Divorce and Custody Celebrity Edition, Volume 4. I am here again with my very good friend, Melissa McDonald. Last time we talked, we may have gotten ahead of ourselves in saying that Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are the mothership of celebrity divorces. And then just a couple weeks ago, news leaked that Kim Kardashian-West and Kanye West are having marital troubles, and Kim is fed up and she wants a divorce. So Melissa, fill us in on kind of what we know has happened so far. And I think they've been fairly tight-lipped about things so far. So maybe we don't have too many things to talk about right away, but there's some clear issues right out of the gate.
Well, glad to be here again, Amos. And this is an interesting one. And, although I have never seen an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, I'm sort of like weirdly a Kim fan. I like Kim. I respect Kim's hustle. Being able to take herself just basically by the force of her own will from being part of the Paris Hilton extended universe to being a household name that probably even my 92-year-old grandfather knows who she is. I think it's pretty impressive based on putting her name out there. And the Kardashian PR machine is top notch. And actually, I was doom scrolling my Twitter feed before we got on this a little while ago, and D-Listed had just put a post up saying that sources, I'm assuming who Michael K refers to as Pit Mama Chris, shout out to my favorite celebrity blogger of all time, D-Listed's Michael K, always calls Kris Jenner Pimp Mama Chris, and I can never think of her any other way. So Pimp Mama Chris, I always assume is the source. But sources said that Kim and Kanye have been going to marriage counseling, but it didn't work out, and they're done with counseling, and that Kanye has agreed to talk to some lawyers. So that's where we're at. Kim is represented by Laura Wasser. I'm not sure if Laura Wasser did her prior divorces, because this is certainly not Kim's first rodeo. Do you think that Kim learned any lessons from her prior marriages, and what would you expect to be out there in terms of things having been worked out sort of before they even got married?
So the Kardashians are not new to this type of predicament. They are calculated. They control the message, like you said. And I think she probably has learned a lot of kind of lessons about keeping things low key, keeping them tight to the vest, not sharing things. If not only for the lessons that regular folks could apply, but also because if they are the only ones with the information, then they can sell it on their TV show or their whatever else they're hawking. But the problem with everything they have known before, in my opinion, is that we know that Kanye West, unfortunately, has at least one very significant mental health disorder, which is bipolar disorder. And that kind of throws a wrench into everything, because to do things the way the Kardashians might like, privately, negotiated, in a calculated manner, all that goes out the window with someone who has a significant mental health issue, including bipolar disorder.
And I'm glad you brought that up. And, just sort of as a caveat, I don't want anything that I say. I think it's really important not to, I'll come back to that. But that was actually part of the narrative and the Kardashians are very good at controlling the narrative. So part of the narrative that has been out there is that Kim got fed up, because of Kanye's tweets and his sort of Twitter antics. I think he called Pimp Mama Chris Chris Jong-un at some point, and went off about how she's trying to run his life, and also B, with his presidential candidacy, his failed presidential candidacy. I do think it's important not to infantilize or to, and I'm not suggesting that you're certainly not going to do this, but not to infantilize or to demonize someone because they have a mental illness. It's there's no way for us to sort out whether Kanye is running for president because he's manic or just because he's egomaniac or whether he's gone full MAGA, just because he's like problematic, because he's problematic, like, it's hard to, there's no way to really sort it out, but it does very much throw a wrench in things. People, I have people in my life who have bipolar disorder, and it is incredibly serious. You certainly can still be a good partner, be a good parent, be a productive member of society, but it involves a lot of self-care, a lot of, medication, therapy, really keeping track of yourself. And the part of the problem is, and this is again, part of the narrative that's been out there for some time now, is that Kanye does not seem to have any interest, according to what the Kardashians are putting out there, in controlling his bipolar disorder, in seeking treatment, in sort of getting things under control. So that's really potentially going to be a real issue. Now, I certainly run into these sorts of things, people who have major mental illnesses in my practice. What do you see as being like the big pitfalls in terms of trying to do, in addition to, that you can't, he either can't or won't control the things that he's going to say, like on Twitter or, to a camera, or, to whoever happens to be walking by, or, in his church that he started in Wyoming or whatever it is. Like, I have a hard time keeping up with all Kanye's antics, but what do you see as the big pitfalls in terms of litigating a family law case when you have either your own client or the opposing party is someone with a sort of who's unwilling to check their mental health issues?
Great. So I'm going to try and respond to a couple of things that you said. One, my practice and the approach that Laura Wasser takes to her celebrity divorces is to resolve things privately by agreement. There's more flexibility. We've been over it before, all the reasons why agreements are better than a court-ordered outcome. But if one party is really not capable of, one, entering into that agreement, and I don't think that's necessarily at play here, but there's a capacity issue. But negotiating these agreements, the give and take that has to come with this, the person has to be prepared to do that. And that's hard enough to do when an individual is just going through the stress of a divorce or a contested child custody modification, or any other form of litigation. But when you add on the layer of potentially an untreated significant mental health issue, because one of the things Kanye West infamously says is, I think something along the lines of, like, his bipolar is my superpower. He doesn't want to be medicated. It affects his creativity. His creativity is the launch pad for his brand, his music, etc. But the things you're talking about, the running for president, the tweeting, those comments he makes in that process are indicative of his thought process and his decision-making processes. And a lot of us would say, and again, I think it's your right to say, don't demonize anyone in this situation. But it's a perception of reality that doesn't match the majority of the world's perception of reality. And when you don't have a perception of reality that joins, you can't actually reach an agreement, right? Because Kanye perceives the world here, and other individuals that have significant mental health issues perceive the world maybe here, whereas I hate to say it's kind of most folks would say maybe it's closer to here. Whatever the issue is, you can't reach agreements that way because you don't have a shared set of facts, which we're seeing all over the news these days. When you don't have a shared set of facts, you can't reach, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to reach an agreement. So that kind of it limits your options, and it really limits Kim's options as to how to exit the marriage.